drowning.
And I'm quite hot, by the way.
Hello, ladies. Welcome back. Episode 13.
Hello. Hey.
Checking in. Sound okay? Audio okay?
Yes.
Check 1, 2. All right, perfect. Welcome back, ladies. And today I'm actually excited about today because my heart is in today's topic, you guys. So in true That's What She Said fashion, we are here bringing you guys stuff we wish we knew sooner. And I have had several conversations with some folks in the Wire community recently, making career pivots, making personal pivots, things of that nature. And somehow I've gotten to some place where I'm like, yeah, you don't see the value that you add to this situation. You don't see the value that you bring here. And that very quickly I wound that all the way back and I said, wow, when I was starting in my career early on in relationships, I had no idea how to articulate my value. I had no idea how to fight for that worth or that value, whether that be through a salary, through compensation, through upholding what I deserve in personal relationships. And now, you know, at my big age, wearing my big girl pants, my own value when it comes to my finances and my mental health. So today is life hack number 26, and it is knowing your value. So let's go ahead and get into this today. I'm Kaylani Blackwell, happy to be here. And let's just dive right in, ladies. When y'all saw the topic for today, did this strike a chord for anybody? Anybody at all?
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
All right. So let's get into it. Now I'm getting vulnerable. I'm wasting no time today. We're 6 minutes after the hour and I'm jumping straight in. I started my real estate career working in Las Vegas, where I was basically the first non-family member of a small operation. And we built that operation, just the four of us, to a multi-million-dollar operation with lots of employees, lots of agents under my purview, making investors lots and lots of money. And because that was my introduction to the business, I was just so grateful to be there. Now, first of all, eternally grateful for that experience. I want to make sure I publicly say that one of the best experiences of my life, 1000%.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, when you start to learn some things, you can't unknow them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You can't unknow them. So I was in a situation where, you know, I'd been there for several years, loved my work, loved the people, but it wasn't scratching the itch for me. And I wasn't, you have to feel like, hey, I'm not doing the things that I love, or I'm not being utilized to my fullest potential, or I'm not in a runway to use all of my skills. You hope that is recognized, right? So now I fast forward to 2024, being a leader in my own organization and being responsible for being a responsible leader, one that's aware and cognizant of the hopes and the dreams that my people possess. Right. So I want to dive into this from a professional angle to start, you know, talking about knowing your worth. When operating in your professional spaces, what could you tell your early career self that is navigating, interviewing, vetting opportunities, and then also being asked to work for something that you know darn good and well was for pennies on the dollar now that we are grown and experienced? So I want to open this up professionally. What are you telling your younger self as far as knowing your worth in a professional standpoint, in a professional setting?
Patty, I saw you leaning in, girl. Go for it, because I know you're about to shut it down, and then we'll come back with our stories. Because she was like,
no, I wasn't. I was, the first thought I had was when you were saying it, describing leading up to this point, was the very first rule in any negotiation is to be willing to walk away. Right? So if you don't enter every single negotiation with the mindset that you're ready and willing to walk away, you're already going to lose. So if I'm going back to that young girl, it's so funny because for me, 20 years ago or 25 years ago or whatever it was, it's a whole different ball game than what you see today, right?
Yeah.
So you're talking about an existence that doesn't revolve around social media, voices that are amplified today that were not amplified back then, me sitting on the phone crying because someone's talking to me like I'm a little girl. Yeah. And I'm an adult trying to live my life, and I own a home and I'm driving a Honda that I bought myself, right? So I can't even begin to describe the difference between the mindset that people have today and back then. But what I will say is that what I have learned and what I would go back and say to her is there is no negotiation, whether it be business or personal. And I know sometimes some of the things I say might sound a little harsh if you're applying it personally, but it's still facts, is that you have to be willing to walk away. So if you're having that conversation with her and she's walking in to get a job, your younger self, or him, your younger self, and he's walking in to get a job and he's trying to negotiate, and you're over here like, I can't pay my bills unless they pay me $32.75 an hour, but they're only offering me $19.25. You can't be like, hey, I got to take it because that's the only thing I can get. You have to be willing to walk away. So that was the first thought I had. That's what you saw happening in my energy, Jade.
I was speaking it, girl. I was speaking it. And I love that you said that. Not only being able to walk away, but being willing to bet on yourself, right? Mm-hmm. I was 22 years old when I got my dream job of working at a hip hop station here in Dallas. Right out of college, straight baby in the game. I had just literally less than 2 weeks turned 22, right? And it's something that Kaylani said earlier that kind of struck a chord with me, because she's like, now hold on, I'm very grateful, right? I'm very grateful for that opportunity. We have got to stop feeling guilty for knowing our value. And the world will tell us, if you know your value, you think you're better than people, you think you're stuck up. So what we do is we're constantly justifying and trying to prove, hey, I don't want to make it seem like I'm being ungrateful. I did that my entire career. I literally can remember going in so many times to negotiate my own contract as a kid. I remember the first salary that they offered me, I was like, this is a slap in the face. But in my mind, I'm like, hey, but if I just stick around and I really tough it out, they're going to see my value. And you go around to your next contract negotiation and they tell you this trick of, hey, at least we're not cutting you. There were some people's salary that we cut. And so you're like, you know what? It's a mind screw, right? And you're like, you know what? You're right. Like, there's so many people that wish that they would be in my position. So I literally can remember at one point I went 7 years on the air with no raise, okay? While I'm watching new people become hired and they're almost getting paid the same amount of salary that I am. I'm busting my butt. I'm working really hard. The last time I went in for a salary negotiation, it was finally, Patty, I was at the point where I was ready to walk. And I wasn't ready to walk because I didn't love what I did. And this was 4 years before I ended up resigning. So I didn't resign because of the money, right? But I remember finally getting to the point of like, hey, this don't feel good. And I'm not going to like myself. I'm going to come in here with a chip on my shoulder and not be a great person to work with if I don't stand up for myself and be willing to walk away. I was scared as hell of like really having to, for lack of a better terms, put my stuff on the table and be like, look, I know my value now. And it made it very tense around the workplace. That's the thing what's so interesting is I think a lot of times we compromise and we take what they'll give us because we want to work in a peaceful environment. Mm-hmm. But the problem with that is the people in charge are the only ones that have peace. You don't have peace and you keep trying to convince yourself that you have peace and you really truly don't, because you know that you're worth so much more, but the world will make you feel guilty for knowing your worth. And so if I could tell my younger self anything, it would be like, you are valuable. You do add value to every table, every room that you walk into. Don't be ashamed of that and stand up for yourself quicker. You know what I mean? And don't just bow your head and because you want this reputation of being nice and grateful. Like nice and grateful don't pay your bills. But I didn't realize that. And I really truly believed in my heart that one day they would wake up and say, I am so appreciative of you, Jade. And because of that, I'm going to X, Y, and Z. I promise you, they never did that until I finally stood up for myself. So that's what I would tell my younger self.
Yeah, that's a good word.
I think I talk about pay transparency all the time and kind of knowing your worth, and then making sure you understand what people are getting paid in your industry. But this is something that I learned way late in life, right? Like I did not learn to negotiate. I was kind of always taught to be grateful for what I got. And if you weren't grateful for what you got, then, you know, it was kind of frowned upon. And even just like speaking up, like all of the things, like I'm always one of those people who have been the one in many, right? I'm always maybe the youngest in the room or the only Black person in the room, or, you know, breaking barriers, you know, for everything that I do. But if I speak on it, I was seen as bragging, or, you know, I'm just like, but like
You think
literally
you're better
only
than everybody.
1% of the population has actually achieved what I have achieved, and I can't even like pat myself on the back, or I can't ask for what I deserve, is disheartening. And I think it happens so much, especially to Black women. No shade to you, Patty, because I know it happens in the Muslim community as well, where anytime we speak up or we talk about our accolades, our accomplishments, we're shit on, for lack of better words. Like, oh, well, how dare you? I was thinking about this today. Like when I started being really transparent about my pay, people used to come to me and be like, you don't need to be talking about how much you get paid because, you know, like that's pretty dangerous. I was like, how is that dangerous? I'm like, I don't walk around with sacks of cash. Like, what are they going to do? Go rob Fidelity for my money that's in my investment account? Like, what, where is this coming from? It's just like all this fear and all this, like, just be quiet, be humble kind of talk around, you know, knowing and speaking on your worth. So that's just been my experience. And it's really disheartening.
So I want to ask you, because y'all are bringing up negotiation. I want to ask the ladies, how do you approach negotiation when it comes to salary? Like, what does that look like? Because there's a book, The Art of Negotiation, which obviously I haven't read because I don't know how to negotiate a daggum thing as far as my salary is concerned. So I'm curious to know if you guys even know where to start with that.
Yeah. Well, first thing, one of the tips I learned, you know, getting into corporate commercial real estate, well after, you know, what we were just talking about, my introduction to the business, getting into corporate commercial real estate, you know, that's an environment where negotiations, especially in corporate environments, are, I believe, expected and welcomed if and when you truly know your value. So there have been times where, you know, I had to first of all ask myself, would a white guy have this conversation or run into this same problem? Would a white guy be expected to settle for what is written here in this offer, right? So one of the very first things that I learned, and I wish I knew this before I got into corporate commercial real estate, but you need to have someone working on your behalf who has insights into the industry. I don't care if that's a recruiter friend, a diversity recruiter, whomever your connection is, someone that has a similar role at another company, any of those things. Have somebody who can speak to you about the expectations of the role and how you can educate yourself on how to turn it around, right? Because it seems like a negotiation when it's, hey, company, what can I do to prove my value to you, versus the company saying, hey, we see your inherent value. This is how we want to appreciate the value that you're bringing to the table. It's a very different conversation. So tip number one, have somebody who can help you articulate, review the offer and help you on how to respond to said offer.
Let me
So
just
I
say,
struggle with that.
clarify on
Go ahead,
that. I'm
Nassima.
sorry, because I would say have multiple somebodies because people are familiar with different industries, and I've had to do this across different industries. Like as far as like the tech industry, where you have, stock buy-in and all of that kind of stuff. Like you have to have those people in your wheelhouse. And so, yes, I just wanted to say, like, not just one person. You should have several people that you can reference.
Yeah.
In every industry that can help you walk through that process, and never agree to anything before you review it with a couple of people.
I
Sure.
struggle with this in entertainment because it is such a loner world. Nobody wants to share what they're getting paid. You can go to other women. It's really super competitive and catty with other women in the industry. And you can try to lean in on like, hey, so quick question. What do you think? How do you think? What should I? And they're very generic. So I had even reached out to like, people used to always say, you need to go get an entertainment attorney and this and that. But entertainment attorneys don't necessarily understand how radio operates, right? And so I literally felt like I was on an island for 20 years of my life. I was constantly, whenever I knew my contract was coming up, I was constantly trying to lean into people, especially the women. And the women just are like, they don't really want to help. They don't want to share their resources. They don't want to share who's negotiating their contracts. And you're like, what the hell? Like, okay. So you just go in there. Girl, one time I even made up y'all a PDF to try to, I'm so embarrassed that I did that, but to try to show what my value is, because I know that you guys know, but I felt like I had to put it on paper. So it was a little bit different for me because there's not a lot of resources, but
I mean, I'm going to give you the perspective from an employer standpoint. I've never worked for a salary in my life. I had a job when I was really young at a call center to try to figure out sales in a call center. Within a week, I cussed out the director and I was gone. I've never,
you daddy.
Yeah, I've never been able to do that. The corporate structure is too much for me to handle. However, I will say this. I was going to talk about the angle of showing your worth, and you just gave a good example of how that doesn't work. I think in today's modern age, no matter what field you're in, it is important for you to have kind of a broad spectrum of knowledge when you come to the table. So here's what I mean. If you understand the industry that you're working in, where you're applying, then you have to understand that your job doesn't exist without revenue being driven into the company. Okay. What drives revenue? I had this epiphany today when I was driving. I took the morning. I did my calls early in the morning. I went to Pilates at 9. I followed that with a lymphatic drainage massage. And then I did a little infrared sauna booth thing. And I took my time. I had a very stressful first 2 days of the week. So I blocked off 3 hours and I went and took care of myself. And I was actually crying, talking to God, thinking I could never have done this before. What was this transition like? So what that transition for me was, I remember, what was I when I first started versus what I am now? I have more resources. I have more help. But what was I in the beginning? I was a skill set. I was able to fill in the blanks on an assembly line that generated revenue. Now I learned I'm the one who brings in that revenue in my position. So I learned the value of my position based on the dollar amount. I never go to a company thinking that they're going to care about who I am and what I'm about and who I feed. They don't give a fuck. They care about the money that I bring to the table and the revenue that I drive. So I don't ever get that twisted in my mind. Never. And that allows me to separate my emotion from my ability to negotiate my worth. So I was able to negotiate something extremely nice for my transition to the bank that I'm in right now. And if I continue on the path that I'm on, it would be double or triple that. And we're not talking 6 figures. So the negotiation of your value has to do with the revenue generating activity that you bring to the table. So if you understand what the company does to generate revenue and you're able to communicate how you can add to that bottom line, it gets the ears going. Because if you're in a situation where you're entry level, I'm going to tell you one thing right now. The best thing you need to be good at is listening and paying attention to detail and following orders, right? If you're at an entry level position, because what you're doing is what the person above you no longer wants to do or basically paid their dues, right? So then you're moving up that ladder. So you have to understand that structure and be able to do that. I think just like college, corporate structures teach people how to be in line. And if you can see beyond that, then you understand how to create that structure. And then you understand that that structure is upheld with revenue. So if you can understand the industry that you're going into, and you can learn what revenue generating activities take place that even enable this job opening, and you can speak from that perspective, I think it will help enhance your ability to negotiate at the table.
And let's add another layer to that, right? Because coming into an entry level position, you may not be the ones on the front line closing the clients, closing the deals, actually performing the revenue generating tasks. But if you can free up and make the person's life easier who is, that is extremely valuable. Because I think when Patty, because I want to push back on something Patty just said, she's like, you're doing a job that that person doesn't want to do anymore. It's not even whether they want to do it or not. I don't want to do any jobs. I don't want to work. I would rather sit on an island. However, it is the job that it's the highest and best use of my time. Does it provide the most return on investment for me in my company to be doing the administrative tasks? Like, can I do them? Yes.
Very good.
Do I do them the best? Probably. Is it going to carry us right as a company where we need to go if that's how I'm spending my time versus focusing on tasks that add velocity and volume to our business? So I just wanted to add some context to that.
That was very good.
That's really good.
Thanks.
Very good add-on.
Question real quick though. So let's just, we're talking entry level, right? Getting into a position for the first time. I want to talk about alignment too, and through the lens of, am I working at a place there where I truly believe in the culture? So as a new employee or someone looking for an opportunity, whether that's a W-2, whether that's looking for an internship, looking for like a mentor or something, working at a company where you can work with someone and just learn so much from the experience, what I want you guys to, what was really big for me, what I want you guys to evaluate is, am I aligned with the culture of this place? Right. So this idea of, can you pay my bills? I think Gen Z doesn't care anymore. Like, yes, we want to make money. Absolutely. We want to make money. More importantly, we want to make impact. More importantly, we want to I'm not trying to be stressed out by you all day, every day. So I guess my thought is, when I am exploring even new partnerships or having this conversation with my sister recently, when you're going to interview, I'm sitting in an interview. Yes, I can answer all of your questions. Yes, I can talk about my skills. But when it's my turn to ask questions, I want to know, is this company in alignment with me and where I'm looking to go? Do you and are you guys pouring into your employees? What does my trajectory look like? What does my potential to earn additional income look like? What's the culture here? Do I vibe with the culture? And I'm 10 out of 10 times looking for the experience that I'm going to have and what I'm going to learn more than the paycheck. So alignment on culture.
Which is so great. And I mean, like, look, I'm probably a little bit older than everybody on here. I was never taught that. My dad is an immigrant from Jamaica that worked at the post office for over 40 years. My mom was a school teacher. At the end of the day, what I was taught, well, first of all, my dad drilled into me that I needed to get a government job because there's good benefits and it's too hard to get fired. That was pretty much his ceiling. Like, if I got a government job, he would be so pleased with me. When he found out I was going into radio, he literally told me that's not a real job. He was so disappointed in my decision. And what's interesting is I was never taught what you just said. I was never taught to align with the culture. It's almost like, get in where you fit in because you got bills to pay and you need to be grateful that somebody is not firing you tomorrow. And you do what it takes without compromising your morals or stepping on anybody else's toes or becoming some, idiot and whatever, to keep your job. And I was taught you stay at one job for the rest of your life, which is why a lot of times we suffer through the discomfort when the culture is not in alignment with us, because at the end of the day, all you can think about is, it's just me. Everybody on here right now, like, we're all single women and we provide for ourselves, period. We ain't calling mama, daddy, whoever to be like, hey, times got tough. You got a little money I could borrow. Can I come stay with you? Whatever. So in that case, your mind keeps telling you, you just got to suffer through it, which goes back to kind of what we talked about earlier of like, not really truly buying into your value and betting and being the ability to bet on yourself if you've never been taught that. That's why I will say this. Patty, you talk about it all the time. You've never worked for anybody. You've been betting on yourself for the last however many years. Like you carry that. Like when we see you, the way that you enter a room, it is like, do you know who you're talking to? Like, I am me and I am she. Like, you know, and I'm not hyping you up, but it's such a great quality to have because it's being unapologetic. And a lot of us have this apologetic posture in order to blend and make things comfortable for everyone else.
But I think a lot of people are in that middle space between where Patty is and where we were. Like I was raised just like you. I was taught to go to the best schools, to go to the good, get a good job, stay in that job forever, you know, and get those benefits and then you retire. I didn't learn this until later in my 30s when I discovered the financial independence movement, that things could look different, that retirement wasn't an age, that it was a number, and how to set yourself up so you can opt out of a lot of stuff, right? And so a lot of people are struggling to get from there, like from just like that mindset of we just have to maintain and try to just like get a good job where we can be cool and then retire when we're 65, to no, we are worth so much more and we're going to lean into that and ask for that and claim that in everything that we do. So I think that's where people need help, like getting out of that kind of that gap, that bridge, like bridging to get to where Patty is.
Well, I mean, where all of us are. And I do go back to that interview part. I think about the cultural alignment. Again, I'm trying to put myself in the mindset of someone who's out looking for a job, who might be a listener. Maybe let's say you're in your 20s, right? And you just heard about that. Well, you know, at the interview, you know, don't walk in there talking about, I need to make sure that I'm aligned with your energy. And I have a few questions for you, sir, you know, because I think you need to do your research before you walk in the door. And I think that's really impressive. So for example, if I'm the interviewee and I'm talking to Kalani, I'm like, Kalani, I did my research on Wire and I think it's phenomenal what you're doing across the country for women in real estate. I really enjoy the way you understand how to bring people together. My area of expertise is making those kind of connections. And on top of that, I have 4 years of experience in real estate. These are the skill sets I think I can teach to some of your new members, right? When I walk in the door, I already know that I understand the culture that I'm walking into, right? And then either when I walk in, I'm going to feel it or I'm not going to feel it. I don't think the interview is where you're going to figure that out. And I do think it's highly impressive when you've done your research and you ask good questions. You know, the best of the best people don't have answers, they have questions. So the most intelligent people. So I think it's important to walk in with questions or have some feedback for the company. The worst thing is when you go, so do you have any questions for me? And they have nothing to say. No, I'm just here. That's all I wanted. But you know, that tells me that when I'm working with you, I'm not going to feel inspired. And believe it or not, the people who are running that section of the organization that you want to work for, they also want that positive energy and that feedback. Wow, this person's really going to be good. And then, of course, there's that fine line of, you know, not outshining them. I think managers kind of do get a little intimidated by that. And I do think that might roll right into the next topic of setting the boundaries, maintaining those healthy dynamics, because in workplaces, whether it's entrepreneurial, small business, corporate, I do think that there's a lot of boundaries that can get crossed. And I think maybe for some of us that have been around, we're a little bit older than many of our listeners, that we know kind of how those lines have been severely blurred over the years. It seems to be that there are more boundaries today. So to kick off that part of the segment, I just want to say that women, whether it's in personal relationships or business relationships, you can be enterprising, extremely successful, earn very well, and still be feminine. And being feminine is not leading with your sexuality. So leading with sex. So let's take away the fact that many men do take advantage of that in workplaces. There's flirtation, there's sexual abuse, there's all kinds of dangerous things that happen in environments, whether they're work or personal. But also, I want to address the woman, right? There are a lot of us that understand exactly what it takes to be able to kind of manipulate circumstances based on sexual energy. And I would like to challenge all young women to make sure that they avoid that. You can be feminine. You don't have to subscribe to masculine behavior to become excellent in sales or to become a high earner. You don't. But the very easiest way that you can blur lines on a boundary and also lose all the respect that you wanted to have in that arena is to lead with your sexuality. So I'll start with that and let you ladies take it.
Well, I'm a nurse, so that's never been an option for me. I saw a whole bunch of vaginas around me.
The delivery
Well,
knows to be specific.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, you ever had a doctor try to be like, come meet me back in the scalpel room or something? Like, you know,
Not
like,
the scalpel room.
like, where's
Oh,
the morphine
no.
at?
Oh Lord. So when you were saying that, Patty, I was like, okay. All right, let me see where we're going with this. And then I had to think about, my experience in a professional workplace. And I can say that I'm pretty certain, like at least 9 out of 10 times when I encounter a man in a professional work setting, they may say the professional things, but you know that you are being sexualized in a way.
Yeah.
Right. Which is the unfortunate reality that we live in. I walk into meetings, people don't expect me to be tall and beautiful and well spoken and all of these things. Oh, wait, and she's smart, right? That's the part where it's like, oh wow, okay, she actually knows what she's talking about.
Exactly.
And to me, that's one of the biggest like FU moments in those interactions where it's like, oh yeah, you thought I was just some dumb pretty bitch, right?
They're like toddlers. They're gonna test you.
They're gonna test you. And so I think the unfortunate reality, which it sucks that this is the reality for a lot of people, but it is the reality. So how I've learned to navigate those spaces, which is like super unfortunate. I had a situation where someone that I know professionally, I finally met in person at an event one day. And they hugged me pretty tight. And I was okay, like, oh my goodness, I appreciate, because you think I go pretty hard for you. And I do. I see, we've talked professionally. You're supportive of my business. I'm supportive of where you are. We've got some rapport and camaraderie. But that hug was a little too long of a hug. And, I could have been like, I could have freaked out, and everyone is warranted to their reaction. But I remember being like, and I remember saying this as he was hugging me and like not kind of letting go. And I said, sir, there's no way in your wildest dreams that this is ever going to happen. So you can stop now. Appreciate the try. Actually, I don't appreciate the try. Like, never going to happen.
But can I say something there? Okay. Yeah. Okay. No, you finish that story. No, you finish that.
What I could have done in that situation. I mean, there's so many different ways I could have handled that. But even being in a position where I had to even say that, and depending on who you're even saying it to, you could say that to the wrong person that could then make it their mission to then ruin your career because you didn't reciprocate their advance, right? So the reality is that having those, at the end of the day, there's no paycheck worth your sanity, right? And worth your self-respect. Those boundaries need to be drawn hard and stuck with, because at the end of the day, if there's an environment where that is what you're having to tolerate, that's not an environment that you should be in. Period.
There's nothing sexier than a woman that holds up that boundary. And it's a very compromising situation in workplaces, in male-dominated industries, even today. So Erykah Badu was dragged on Twitter a long time ago. It was like maybe 3 to 5 years ago. I can't remember. But she was dragged because she was saying that she teaches her daughters. She was saying girls shouldn't walk in high school with their budding bodies with miniskirts, right? And then she got dragged because they said she's victim shaming. Why don't we tell the teacher not to look at her that way? Well, if we understand basic biology, we know that young women in high school are developing and they look beautiful and they're attractive and they dress like they forgot their clothes, right? And I'm sorry, if you're a warm-blooded heterosexual male, you're going to have a reaction to that. Maybe even if you didn't intend on having a reaction to that, right? And so I think lowering your gaze is something that's really, really important. But if you're not able to do that, should we not also teach women that there's a certain code of conduct that is protective to them? We're not saying, hey, girl, don't wear this or don't wear that, or you can't wear this, or you got to cover up. So what we're talking about is there is this dynamic of these type of conversations being misconstrued as victim shaming, or saying that, hey, women should not be the ones that have to curb their behavior in order to tame men, right? So we're talking about setting the boundaries in the workplace. And I'm just saying, women know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. You know what it feels like to be in a negotiation or in a situation or having a conversation where a man is not taking you very seriously and he's being flirtatious instead. Or there's little comments that are made here, little small jabs. And what I'm saying is, for women that want to make sure the boundary is clear and you want to advance in that company or within that career, don't take the bait. Don't use that as leverage, because that is a trap. If you weaken your stance by using those moments as leverage for yourself, you're going to lose in the long run. So set that boundary and be very strong. You can be feminine. You do not have to subscribe to masculine behavior to become a great negotiator or a high earner. And you also do not have to entertain those sort of advancements. As a matter of fact, completely putting a wall up and moving past that and making sure it doesn't happen again through your actions and not your words is going to set the stage for a lot more opportunity within that, realm. That's what I have to say.
God. And I'm sorry, because I don't want to monopolize here, but I saw such a great shout out to Garland Fuller, a really good friend of mine. She started she is in HR, right? Recruiting, diverse recruiting, corporate commercial, the whole nine. Anyway, she put out a TikTok, I think like a week ago, and she explained that HR is not for your benefit. So I'm going to take this one step farther. God forbid anyone is ever in a situation like that and you have to escalate. Keep in mind that HR is there to mitigate risk for the company. As much as they try to seem like they're there to keep the peace, help you make everything fair, sort of, until it compromises the company. So make sure that, again, if you are in an environment, you really need to assess whether or not that's the right environment for you, because leaving might be the best and only option. Because getting any type of, not to say that HR can't help and doesn't take sexual abuse allegations or harassment seriously. It depends on who's harassing. If the owner of the company or the CEO of the company is harassing, are they going or are you going? Right? Sorry. Go ahead, Nasima. I know you were wanting to chime in there.
Oh no, I'm okay. I just had a visceral reaction to like this whole like modesty thing versus like, people's accountability. Like I am not I'm not saying it's victim shaming, but I think that a lot of times there's no accountability for these men that rape women, that are flirtatious, that use sexual prowess to get their needs met in these organizations. And I feel like it keeps on being perpetuated. And I think that by shaping the argument around women shouldn't wear miniskirts, like I understand what Erykah Badu is saying, I agree. But I think by focusing on arguments like that, we're taking away the accountability that these men need to have to like cut it out. I mean, all this Diddy stuff that's coming out, like all of these things in the music industry, and I know you've seen it, Jay, like have been perpetuated for far too long. And I just think that we need to put more focus on making sure that these people in power positions are held accountable for taking advantage of people sexually, despite what people look like, what they wear, how they show up. And so that was like my face during that time, because I just feel like we are focusing on the wrong things oftentimes. Not saying that women do not have any kind of role in accountability and playing into putting up boundaries and all of that kind of stuff. I get that, but people need to start being brought to the table. And I think we're seeing it now more than ever, but it's too little too late for me.
And I don't care what the world says, the word says. And if your eyes cause you to sin, gouge it out and throw it away. Matthew 18:9. Go ahead, Jade.
No, I was going to say, I mean, I definitely agree. I think there's a sense of responsibility on both sides. I don't think that Erykah Badu was trying to victim shame with that. And I definitely think that there is a level of responsibility that predators, let's be clear, need to, people need to start calling people out, right? And unfortunately, when people are in power, they don't get called out enough. But it's the same way. I don't want a man to come to a business meeting in gray sweatpants with no underwear, right? Like at the end of the day, there are certain things that we all know can possibly be enticing. It doesn't give me the right to act upon it or whatever. But let's be clear. We all know that certain uniforms can possibly bring a certain level of attention, and we have to be realistic about that. It does not give an excuse for people to act upon it, but we live in such a shallow society where, look, if that person is not going to protect me, I may have to protect myself, right? And not warrant a certain amount of attention. Another thing that Patty was talking about earlier, I feel like we have to always remember, if you compromise your character and your morals to get an opportunity, you will have to continue to compromise your character and your morals to continue to keep that opportunity. So you have to be so careful how you get it, because how you get it is what you're gonna have to do to keep it. And you know, this has been the most disappointing thing for me in my career, is that when there is a business opportunity, and I have run out of fingers of how many times that this has happened to me. I think that I have a certain level, I'm intelligent. I think that I am responsible. I think that I'm an executor. I think that, like, there's not too much that I can't figure out and go do and go get. And ain't nobody gonna outwork me, period. You know what I mean? If I ain't got nothing else, I'm gonna put my feet on the ground. I'm gonna go make it happen. Okay. But what happens is you get these opportunities and people seem to be so sincere about business. And then it's like you get to the freaking signing table and all of a sudden the narrative changes. And it's like, why are you trying to holler at me? Like, now you're blurring the lines for me. I was excited about this opportunity. Now I'm super uncomfortable because I don't want to do business with you. And if you were mature enough to not try to hit on me in this moment, and I'm not one of those people, y'all, I don't think that everybody is trying to holler at me. That's not how I think. But you know,
we saw you in person, so we know that's how it goes down. So you can be humble all you want to.
No. But it is so disheartening. I cannot tell you how many opportunities have been in my face, literally. And I'm like, God, thank you. Thank you for, and it's the lack of maturity sometimes when you're dealing with people of the opposite sex. Just because you are physically attracted to somebody does not mean that you should act on it. Like, it's okay for me to work with a man that I think is like super fine, and like, I don't want to sleep with you at the same time. I'd rather get this money. Like, let's get to this opportunity. Like, let's grow together. You get what I'm saying? And it's so annoying that you get right there. And so I feel like now when I get opportunities, I'm holding, especially when I'm working with other men, sometimes I'm holding my breath, right? Thinking, please don't flip the script. Please don't let this be flowing. And then all of a sudden you change this on me. And now I have to back out because I don't feel like, and trying to play it off. And I'm uncomfortable now because you're trying to take it somewhere else and I'm not trying to take it. Like, I'm serious about making my money. I'm serious about growing business. I'm serious about not wanting to work for the rest of my life. But because you're leading with your third eye, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Not the one up here. Not the one up here
either. Let me say your third leg. I'm sorry. Because you lead with your third leg.
No, that's too big of a compliment. Call it
my bad. But now we got to blow this whole thing up and I got to move around and now go start all the way over with somebody who could possibly be mature enough to handle working with a woman that you may find attractive, right? And so I cherish those relationships that I have where people can keep it platonic and stay focused. Because again, everybody that you're attracted to, people, you do not have to try to holler. Like, get the money. If we get the money together, there's a possibility later on down the road, I may actually be attracted back because of your ambition, because of your maturity, because of all the things. But right now, I just want to get to the paper and get to the opportunity. There's so much money to be made, but you can't because people can be stupid.
Right.
Yeah. And you're hearing that from a woman who is a part owner of a $13 million apartment complex. Who's humbly telling us she's transitioning to real estate, who's out here listing properties, taking care of properties, doing her own investments. You know, this is the type of woman you want to marry, right? And we're telling you, she's telling you right here, point blank and period, that you transitioning from taking it from an intellectual partnership to some sort of minuscule sexual encounter, you're ruining the entire experience, right? So that's from the woman's perspective. And then you illustrated my point perfectly, because when there are men and women in any sort of environment, some things blur the lines. And if you're setting those boundaries personally and professionally, as a woman, don't give in. Even if you're tempted by it, even in the back of your mind, if you thought this might get me there, don't give in, because that respect, unfortunately, is just going to make them want you more, but also help to preserve your respectful position in that endeavor. So I applaud you for that, Jade, because I know it must be hard getting hit on every time you walk out the house. It must be so exhausting.
Stop playing, Patty. You are you get on my nerves. You're hilarious.
Can't even walk down the street.
No.
She can't. I tell you, the few times every time I've been with Jade, it's how it is, because she's stunning, literally stunning.
Okay, y'all, stop. They hype it, but I appreciate it, ladies. Everybody on here is absolutely stunning. So I appreciate it.
So okay, so this is making me think now a little bit more. So let's progress the conversation a little bit. Let's say, okay, now we're not necessarily talking entry-level jobs or being hit on at work. Now we're established professionals, right? Now we're established professionals, and we are entering spaces with established brands and skill sets, which I want to make sure that I highlight for a quick second that have you guys seen this on TikTok? There have been some TikToks where people talk about minorities not applying for positions because they think that they don't have all of the required qualifications.
That's women as well. Yeah. So like women will only apply for a position if she meets like all of the requirements, where a man would apply for the position if they meet like 30% of the requirements. That's statistically. Yeah.
And when you all are saying requirements, like, can you give some examples?
Like the job requirements, like all of the things, like the things that they list in the job, like that they want
the
you
requisite.
to have.
Right.
And,
no, I know what you mean by that. But what are some of the prerequisites that would make women or minorities shy away from applying? Like,
I don't think it's like a certain like a certain thing. I think it's just the amount of things that they require. And what I was told, like, because when I do interviews with people who do contract negotiations professionally, they say like a job application is a company's wish list. And so when they list out like all the criteria of the things that they want for the job, it's like, if we can find this person that has all these things, it's ideal. But women often shy away thinking that they have to meet all of these requirements before they apply for a job, versus like men, they're just like, oh, okay, that sounds good. I think I can do those things, and then apply for a job. And it's just one of those things that's
so true.
But that's backed by like that. That's proven. There have been studies that have proven that that's the case. So I think when I hear that, one of the things that I want to make sure we tell, a tactical item, as Patty would say, something that you can do when you leave here, is that every ounce of experience of anything that you've done in your life is a transferable skill in some form or fashion. So if you haven't had someone help you professionally write your resume or take other experiences and translate them to the pertinent role before you apply for that, role or that industry, make sure that you do that, you get that help. But I want to look at this from a standpoint of having an established, career, an established resume, and an established brand. So at this point, I think between the four of us, and this is I know I beat this horse till it's dead, but having a personal brand is huge. And I think all four of us have done a wonderful job at creating brands that clearly communicate our value. So now at any point in time, when I go to talk to someone about with them in any capacity, it's not just my skills that I bring to the table, it's the weight of the impact I'm able to have through the brand I've been able to curate, right? And so now today, in negotiations today, how are we, let's talk about personal brand and the part that plays in these negotiations. So Jade, I'm going to go to you first. Now that you've established yourself with 20 years of experience in this space, now that you're pivoting into the real estate space, how are people approaching you? And do you think it's different given that you have an established brand versus someone who maybe not getting into real estate for the first time?
I think obviously having an established brand definitely helps even through the transition, because there's been a trust, right? Because my brand has been consistent over the years. Now when I'm pivoting, it doesn't take away from the part of the brand that is like the character and the trust that has grown over time. So people still feel like they know me. And no matter what industry I would have gone in, there's a certain level of probably unfair support, if I'm being honest, right? If somebody is just new starting out and hasn't established this brand, They literally are starting from the ground up, and they're having to build trust. Because let's keep it real. When people are doing business with you, yes, they care about your skill set, but more importantly, they care if they can trust you or not. Because there's so many people out here that don't have integrity and character. So you'd rather bet on me sometimes because you feel like you know me, and I may not have the skill set, than somebody who's probably like 15, 20 years in the game that has, the ability to run circles around me, but you don't know them. But this is why building a solid brand and being consistent with it is so important. I think I may have cut off. Can y'all still hear me?
Yeah,
I
we can
think
hear
your
you.
mic switched to
Yeah.
your AirPods. I mean your
Did it
Computer mic.
switch? I am
Yeah.
completely frozen on my end. So you guys
I got
continue.
you.
I'm going to figure this out. And then, this is called live.
Because you
I
can
got
still
you.
hear me, and because you can still hear us, I want to say, oh, she's gone. Okay. I'm going to make that point when she gets back.
She can still hear you though. Go ahead.
She can still hear us now? Okay, cool.
Mhm.
So what I think is extremely important from the perception of Jade, so if I see someone in radio talking about I'm doing real estate, my first thought is, oh, they're broke. That's not working out. So now they're trying to make some money in real estate. Because a lot of people get into real estate because they want to make money, right? That's my
Damn.
first thought. I'm just keeping it all the way real with you. So first you had a janitor business, then you were doing cars. Now you in real estate. You're broke, right? That's my first thought. The difference between, I think, what translates into trust and respect when it comes to Jade's transition and what she does is that she appears to be more of a community figure than a media personality. There's not this image of gossip. There's this faith, there's this love, there's this beautiful energy. There's these, a community figure, but also she's not just selling, she's investing. And I think for anyone who listens in our real estate circles who understands the value, if you're selling real estate and you've never bought real estate, I don't want to discourage you. But what I'm telling you is it really changes the way the credibility translates through the building of a personal brand. So that was the point I wanted to make. I wanted to compliment her on that. Hopefully she heard it and change it. And then I think, Nasima, you should answer this question next because you've done a phenomenal job.
Absolutely.
What?
The personal brand question. How does the personal brand help you in the workplace?
Yeah, I think my personal brand has helped me outside of my workplace. I don't really try to mingle the two, even though every once in a while somebody tries to hate on me and tries to mingle the two. But how that has helped me is that
Did y'all see Nasima on TikTok? She was talking shit about us. Y'all saw that reel that she posted? She was talking about us.
No. So I think because I've been able to build communities, because I do thrive on transparency and just sharing honestly, like my story, I think that a lot of people trust me. And it has translated into me getting to work with people in different industries with brand deals and all of that kind of stuff. And I think I don't have to speak for myself. Like you can pretty much Google me and really know what I stand on, and I stand on business. And that's just who I am. And so
Exclamation point.
I mean, my favorite thing is if you don't know, just Google, and there's a lot of information out there that you can learn from. But I think it's grounded in integrity, and it's grounded in the fact that I do what I say and I say what I mean, and I have receipts for those things. And so especially in the space where you're dealing with money and there's a lot of people that are scamming out there.
Mhm.
I think that goes a long way. And so I think that helped me. And to be clear, I didn't set out to build a personal brand. I set out to help a small group of my friends in making sure that we set our daughters up for wealth. And it blossomed into something that helped a lot more people. But in all of that, I was able to be authentically myself because I was presenting myself to the people who knew me and loved me. And so that's kind of how it grew. But that's how I kept it because I'm just not the kind of person that's going to be fake. I'm not fake in the front.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's perfect. Because you said I didn't set out to build a personal brand. I think everybody should. I know that wasn't the intent, but I bet you now there's no downside to having it at this point, really, is
Right.
When you think of it,
No.
right?
No.
So I would encourage everyone to work on building their personal brands. And I tell this to people I mentor, also people in the Wire community, and people that I consult with and for. It's like, we need to build up this brand, because now that she's got an established brand, she's opened herself up to even other means of generating income. But here's the coolest thing about having a brand, and this is what I learned in corporate commercial real estate, is that when I started really popping off on Clubhouse and this whole internet stuff started to be a thing, I was so anti-internet. I don't know, Patty, I don't know if you remember when we first met, my Instagram was private. I had to make it public because I couldn't approve the request fast enough. And I realized as I started to establish this Women in Real Estate brand, my corporate sponsor at the time, either, I got slapped on the wrist, like the legal team had me on speed dial because I kept getting interviewed for articles now about commercial real estate. And of course, I'm a broker at one of the biggest firms in the world, and you're supposed to get those things cleared before you talk about them publicly. And no, who am I? Some young broker, mind you, 0.03% of brokers look like me, being a woman of color in the space. So not only am I not super seasoned yet, I'm still relatively new in the space, and I'm this young woman of color over here stirring shit up. And so I was getting slapped on the wrist, like, not in a bad way, but what it did was, I think, is when legal and corporate had to evaluate how they wanted to interact with me, my personal brand was one that spoke up for and encouraged and supported women. So they had to determine, wow, what does it look like if we support this brand? What does it look like if we choose not to support this brand? And sometimes it says more when they don't, right? And so I can say, super happy and excited to say that is a relationship that is still fruitful in my life today, because they chose to support the brand. That, you get it. When your brand is sophisticated and when you've built that up, people have to determine, it might be more of a risk to not work with you in the way that you intend than to, brush it off. So personal brand, 10 out of 10, highly recommend. Welcome back, Jake.
Sorry, y'all. I heard y'all talking behind my back. I'm gonna have to watch that part of the show back.
Did you hear what I said? Well, I want you to hear what I said. I want to say it again. If I can, is that okay, Kehlani?
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to say it again. So I think what you said about personal brand is so important, because you were talking about trust, right? And you were talking about having that. I think that trust translates into accountability when you have a physical presence and people know you. Because the idea when you're an onlooker, I was saying, if I see someone from media or entertainment or the music industry and I see them getting into real estate, my first thought is, oh, you're broke. So you're making this transition because this is not paying the bills anymore and you got to do this. Nothing wrong with that. But what I'm saying is, or if you see someone, you tried this, you tried that, now all of a sudden you're a realtor. The difference between your transition, which I think is important for anyone who's actually listening that might already have a personal brand, is that your transition is not just, I'm going from this to selling real estate. I've transitioned into real estate and I am an investor. I've got skin in the game. So if you're a real estate agent and you're out here building a personal brand, I'm telling you, the jumping around and making creative videos about real estate facts that you read on Google is not the business, right? So what's happening is I'm transitioning, and as I'm transitioning, I'm becoming an owner. I'm not just buying a house, I'm buying real estate. I'm flipping real estate. Now I can really guide you on how to put a carpet in, how much a window might cost, what a roof life means. And look at me, I just invested in a multi-million-dollar project, right? I'm not looking at you like, oh my God, I wonder if she knows what she's doing. I'm like, wow. This woman who has a leadership presence in the community is now transitioning into real estate, but not just to sell, but to own. This is the kind of woman I want to be aligned with. So when you're adding something, I think it needs to be of that magnitude. It's not just, oh, I have fans, 3,000 people like my post, therefore I'm this, that. It has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with the fact that you have credibility and accountability. If you mess up, you're not going to want that on the internet, right? It takes 20 years to build a reputation, 2 minutes to ruin it. You don't want that 2 minutes, right? I know you don't want that, because you're not going to want to ruin what you've built, right? So that's one thing. And then the other thing is making this transition as an owner. I want you to advise me because you're an owner, not just because you got your salesperson license. And I think that makes a very big difference in your particular transition that I'm really enjoying watching.
I appreciate that. I think it's important too, if you do decide to transition, and Nasima, you can relate to this too. It is reporting the process and the progress, and not just, to your point, Patty, I have literally had people say, you need to become the real estate expert. And I'm like, nah. Like, people not stupid. I'm not fixing to your point, be Googling all this information and all of a sudden I'm out here and it's like, oh, all of a sudden she knows everything there is to know about real estate. That's dumb. Like, I'm not going to do that. I want to let people know that I have also had, a leader has to also become a student. And I'm in my student phase of life. And I want people to know that it is okay to have to take a few steps back to learn the game properly. I'm always big upping my mentors. I'm always big upping my coaches. I'm always like out here, like asking questions and reporting that I'm afraid, I was scared doing this. Like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm learning it along the way. And I think as long as we're authentic about what that pivot looks like, because what people do is they switch industries and become this pro, and it's unrealistic. And when people want to switch out of what they're doing right now and change into something else, they start like being afraid of the process. Like, what's wrong with me? How come I didn't all of a sudden become an expert like this person did in 2 months? It doesn't work like that. So, you know, I think that you do have to be vulnerable enough to say, like, let me tell you something, Patty. What's so interesting, I know we're going over time. When people saw me do my first flip, you know how many people were in my DMs talking about, can you mentor me? I said, if I mentor you, you're going to lose all your money. I promise you, because I don't know what the heck I'm doing. I have a coach. If you want to be coached, go to my coach. But you know, my coach ain't free. That's the problem. You want to come to me and get some free game, as opposed to doing what I did and investing in myself and putting my money where my mouth is and saying, I want to pay because I'm not qualified to be in this room to get the information that you have to share with me so that I can later on qualify myself. Right. So, yeah. But before we get out of here, y'all, go ahead, Patty.
I was just gonna say that the frequency of authenticity that reeks of you comes off you so beautifully online, and then in person it's even 10 times more. So I felt that energy so much. You know, the frequency of authenticity is 4,000 times more powerful than love itself, and you're giving that off. So wow, I'm excited. I'm excited to keep watching you grow. And that was some real good advice. All right, let's go. Hot topic. Make me laugh. I'm ready.
Okay, we're not going to do a hot topic. Actually, the hot topic is this. I literally, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, got a chance to go to Oakland over the weekend. I need everybody to know this. Like, believe it or not, Kaylani is the only one that I've actually met in person. She came to Dallas for our first real estate event. We were able to hang out, you know, for several hours. Such an authentic connection. It's so weird that we can get online every single week and talk like we're best friends and have never met in person. I got a chance to meet each one of these ladies in person. And it's literally going to make me tear up, because adulting is lonely, people. And it is so hard to meet a group of women that like truly, truly are who they are, like online. And I cannot tell you how phenomenal each woman on this show is. Like, you're talking about me oozing authenticity. You guys are, oh my God, I cannot even tell you, like, to be in your presence and it to be that easy. Like, it was insane, you guys. Normally, even when you meet people online, there's this odd, like, getting to know you. I feel like I've been kicking it with them for my entire life. I'm not even joking. And to know that each woman on here is as successful as you are, and you still, like, when I saw you, it was like open arms. It was like, let's kick it. It was like, I've been knowing you since I was in kindergarten. It was no kind of transition where it was like, well, let me sit back and observe and see what the real is. No, I was like, these are my girls. So I want everybody to know that all of these women that you see on here, what you see is what you get. Not only are they powerhouses, not only are they successful, they are so kind and loving and real. And I people need to know that about y'all. Real talk. Like, Oakland owes me nothing because of you ladies. Like, I was like, dang, I need to move. Like, right. We need to move to Oakland.
We're going to the West Coast.
Cali, baby. We're made different in the Bay Area. It's different out here.
Oh,
so thank you guys so much.
Organic.
Thank you. Love you. Love you deep.
Here.
Made a thug shut a tear. Oakland tear. No, that's so real. And I hope that people get inspired by this, because finding good relationships, healthy relationships, you know, this far along in life, at our big ages, finding new friends that are pouring into us, like, it really, really, really matters. So, you know, Life Hack 26, know your worth. I think this is worthy of a part 2, possibly for next week. If anybody has any questions or any specific topics that they would like us to touch on, please let us know. But I if we're leaving here with any action items, any tactical things, don't fall for the advances. Don't be sold pipe dreams, and be confident in assessing situations before you agree, right?
And get you a jade.
And get you a you can't have ours. We got her already. We'll help you find one of your own. But thank you, ladies, for showing up. It's been another wonderful Wednesday, and I actually kind of like being on the Pacific time zone because it's 5 o'clock. I got the rest of my night ahead of me, and I'm about to watch the Mavs get this dub. And you all have a good night. Thank you, everybody.
Love y'all. Bye.